Very good gamers, how are we? This is Games and Chill, and we are in a new video in the legendary Tighnari build.
こんにちは。アビディアの森所属のレンジャー長、ティナリだ。
Tighnari will surely be the most chosen character of the 5 free stars that we will be able to claim in NATLAN within approximately about 4 days since you see this build. Let me in the comments how much hype from 1 to 10 you have for NATLAN, and from 1 to 10, how much you want to claim this 5 stars for the anniversary and which one you're going to claim, and today we're going to see. As I say, all the secrets of the current carry within the permanent, the current best character, and also provides an account of the permanent and one of the characters that has most evolved, grown and improved over time. So you know how to leave a good like, a subscription to NATLAN, subscribe, leave a good comment, thank you, contribute a lot. It doesn't cost you anything, it's free to recommend the channel grow, exploit this video. I think I want it to be Tighnari's most viewed build. All Spanish speaking games and impact, so you know we're gonna make this explode and we're going with the legendary build of Lorellas of our friend Tighnari. Well, we are going from the base that today, Tighnari mainly has 2 teams, and you'll tell me Phil. But if you the team say it in the end already, but knowing a character so old I think it's very good to synthesize the teams where you can get to play, and then from there comment all the rest of the kit focused on those teams, because it has 2 teams mainly that are the Hyper Blooms, which is the same core of the Al-Hytham and the Agraves, where you don't carry Hydro. That Hydro in all cases with Tighnari is only Furina, because Tighnari doesn't give bases, unlike Al-Hytham, which does not activate Shinkyu Yellen, and can only be played in Hyper Bloom with Furina, but Furina is Furina, and Furina's damage bonus is a nonsense with which Tighnari's main core is Tighnari. Nagida, best in slot bar Emilio. You can play perfectly Furina and Cookie triple mastery for Hyper Blooms, and then the main core of Uncarrying Graves Hydro is something like that, but playing 2 Electros, 2 Dendros, and something similar. I recommend mainly if Furina is free to play Tighnari at Hyper Bloom. Now, talents, what does the character do? I say inside and careful, because I will mention Al-Hytham and Kinish in this build, as they are carries inside with a potential to rival in the same teams as Tighnari. Well, basically Tighnari is played mainly by maxing out his normal attack, whereas the reflection of his charged attack it, which is what's important. His ulti, that literally half of his damage is his loaded, and the other half is his ulti and his elemental. You don't have to promote it too much. In fact, over time I would recommend a 9.59, because the only thing that has its elemental is a single blow that doesn't scale too much, as you can see. And you're not going to greatly increase its damage by increasing the talent. So a 9.59 quietly is more than enough for Tighnari. It's loaded. Basically, I think you all know that when you keep the attack loaded, you do like Ganyu, which is a way. Very simple, and basically gives you a special load that does a pretty big damage with many vines. Many hits inside, and this loaded can do all the damage completely in sprint damage, which is the reaction that makes. When you hit an affected enemy inside an Electro at the same time, you do more damage than anything inside or from, well, the charge is this that you will see here, and this charge is very important to mention at the beginning of if friends you go around the map and do like that, and those shards you release from the inside if there's a chest. Now your elementary ability is basically so that instead of looking at what it takes in loading the load, your elementary ability gives you 3 automatic loaders, 1, 2, and 3. Now within the attack of the charged attack and his elementary ability to finish explaining it the most quick and efficient to throw the continuous dashier loads between loaded and loaded. This is a slightly more advanced skill, and it is very fun to learn how to play it, but look at the speed to throw the loads. 1, 1, 2, and 3. There you have it. That is basically the right way to make the combo. At first it may be a little difficult, but once you learn to do this 1, 2, 3, you will maximize the damage very much, and even in the rotation it usually gives you time to throw one last. Because in Nahida, Furina, and Cookie, they have 15 seconds of cooldown, and our friend Tighnari has 12 seconds. and 12 seconds of cooldown, with which the Tighnari team is very frantic, because the rotation of the entire team is 15. It's crazy and it's super fast and super frenetic. It doesn't have much more mysteries about Elemental than enemies inside. Of this elementary ability, they're supposed to have a taunt and start fighting each other, but really do when I shoot. The elemental enemies start hitting you, and I don't see it but well, and their ulti doesn't have much text either. Has cost of 40, which is an extremely low cost with which you have to invest mainly critical proportion, and it's a ulti. What it does is a nuke of a lot of hits. Very important explanation of the kit of Tighnari. Basically, its kit. It is elemental ulti and the 3 charged because the elemental generates the particles plus the elemental. With one of the constellations, once you have an enemy within your elementary ability, gives you 20% of a damage inside this. We'll talk later, and half your damage is your ulti. And the other half your damage is your burden, with the difference that your ulti. It will not fail in any way, and you're burdened by enemies in the abyss after doing this to make this combo. You can be interrupted 1, 2, and 3 there, but you can be interrupted then some loaded, maybe in some rotation. It's going to fall, but all the damage from the ulti, if it's going to fall, with which it's still going to take it 959. But you have to prioritize its ulti because is its main and most stable source of damage, although half the damage is avoided between the loaded and its ulti first talent. Ascent talents. Basically, the first talent of Ascension makes that after you shoot a loaded 50th Master's gain, which is interesting, not the best thing in the world. Simply increases the damage of the 2 attendant laden, and the second talent of Ascension, for every point of mastery you gain damage in your laden and entangled arrows of fire. Your ulti, both the main and the secondary, with which of course it is worth much more to get mastery. In Tighnari above attack, and in addition this talent dominates in 1000 of master's degree, with which in field and usually it can be given, with the consonants within, with the ulti of Nahida. With some training set on the team, with the golden dreams and with more factors, it is more or less easy to achieve 1000 mastery with Tighnari to weather this talent. In summary, as you see, the kit is extremely easy to understand and is elementary, ulti and loaded doing the rotation. That I've told you, these talents activate them unintentionally, and then has the talent that the typical objects of Sumeru are shown on the map. That is interesting. So the kit and use of Tighnari is extremely simple. Now constellations, for many of you may have Tighnari with constellations or want to know how much powerful are as they appear unintentionally in the permanent, or we can choose a constellation of Tighnari in the 5 stars for free. So spoiler, as I told you before, the C2 is activated with your elementary ability, but the most important of the global constellations is that they contribute much more than the ones they contribute, for example, from Al-Haytham. That's why I explain, and I told you in the routine verse. Al-Haytham than Al-Haytham on base and at Chero is better than Tighnari, has more damage and is preferred. Besides that, the design is a little better according to tastes. But when you are taking out constellations to Tighnari, it is. Power the damage a lot more, which Al-Haytham doesn't get much better with constellations. With which Tighnari in the medium and long term in the accounts improves Al-Haytham, and here's spoiler, I told you at the beginning. I'll talk about Kinnish. Kinnish to C2 has the potential to literally bust Tighnari Al-Haytham on traditional teams. Ancient Kari and Dendro that are Hyperlum and Aggravation, although Kinnish will be made to play in Burn and Crackle. But the versatility of Akari being the best in much more equipment always adds points. Back to the Tighnari constellations, basically the cone gives you 15 probability on the load. This constellation would be infinitely better if I gave you 15 general probability. Remembering that half of your damage is your ulti, and besides your ulti is stable damage that is better than the loaded ones that can you interrupt. But it's more likely on your loaders that it's more damage than half the damage part of the loaders. A lot of people have seen that they have the cone, and because they don't understand a constellation that doesn't have a lot of text, because it doesn't have much text like others, on the contrary, I've seen people carrying Tighnari with 50, 55 probability. Not good is that I have the hone, not friend, half your damage, and in fact the most consistent because it is infallible. Is your ulti, and your ulti doesn't count on this, you always have to look for 70 probability in Tighnari at least as in. All the characters, then the C2 if it's general damage to the entire Tighnari kit says. If in the area of your elemental ability, there is any enemy Tighnari, it's 20% damage inside. The effect remains 6 seconds after the duration of the area ends or when there are no enemies in it. This is basically a 20% constant of additional damage inside. All your damage is damage inside while there's an enemy. So the rotation always has to start with the elemental to activate this elemental ulti C2 for the particles of your elemental, and you already throw all 3 loaded. The C2 is interesting, and I think it is the most powerful at level to get semi-easy, because it can come out of you unintentionally. Then this one here is your ulti +3, which is very important, and before we talk about the C4. The C5, because the C5 is the elemental, +3 that literally serves no purpose, the C5, and that, as we saw in the characters of Fontaine, that many characters have talents of normal attack +3, as is the case of Arlecchino, for example, would have. Incredible state that Tighnari had a C5 that was normal attack, which is his scale of the load, +3, or even a reward. By Joyo, you will see that it said in the CR5 of Tighnari now is the normal attack, +3, and wins as its load much more. Now the C4 is more mastery to cap the 1000 mastery of the Ascension talent, says, by using the ulti, the elementary mastery. Of all the team members included, he is 60 wins 60 for 8 seconds if the skill that uses burn reaction, flowering acceleration or propagation, i.e. quicken, or flanges, i.e. the electro reaction itself with inside that will make. Always Tighnari team's mastery increases 60 additional points. The duration of the state unification is restarted. That is 120 masters points is the C4, with which if you have C4, with reaching us 880 or 850 masters points with Tighnari plus C4. You top the 1000 master's degree at Tighnari. You can basically invest in attack, and the seeks to finish is an infinite chain. Of the loaders of Tighnari, says the loading time, the floral arrow is reduced by 0.9. This is general, i.e. your arrow will be key. Usually reduces in this, and when hitting the target creates an additional arrow in fluorescence that inflicts equivalent to 150% of the Tighnari attack is an extra hit plus damage within this that benefits number 1 in that your elementary skill and your 3 initial arrows are a much faster goddamn savagery. That's saying this is going to take a lot less practically. You will notice that they are, but is that above this can be a 4th arrow that you can throw. The rotation will also be reduced a second, and basically you will have the ability to pull approximately 5-6 loaded by rotation with Tighnari, because they will be spectacularly much faster. And frantic is fun is a 5 stars chicks, which is literally not that. Be Jesus Christ, if you play solo effectively, if you play solo with the Sheiks is not like other characters C2 or CX that Zolo, Arlecchino and Neuvillette can mainly make you a room of the Tighnari abyss could not need to accompany. A team in basically 6, since it can be equated to some other 5-star C2 on some other occasion or situation, but is interesting because you can get chicks almost unintentionally in free-to-play accounts, and more now that once a year we go to give away a character 5 stars of the permanent. And we will be able to choose all this kind of things now. Sets Tighnari has 2 good sets, but there's one that I would recommend way above the other for the damage you can get and actually get. That set is the Golden Dreams. Tighnari can carry on one side the Orchestra of the Wandering that many will tell me Phil, and the Orchestra of the Wandering in Tighnari, because now I explain to you why I will not recommend it, and the 2 sets that I will recommend are Golden Dreams and Memories of the Forest, like I have been carrying now, since it gives you 15 years in, and it is situational memories of the forest, with which by default on all occasions, and now even more without excuses, because NATLAN comes the set of dreams. Aureos a Reliquario, with which there is no excuse anymore. I will recommend the Golden Dreams as option number 1 because you give a huge amount of mastery that makes you always reach 1000 master's degree, or that if you even go beyond 1000 of mastery by the set, and everything else you can invest more in proportion other stats in the substat of the artifacts. Now you will tell me, Phil, and why not Orchestra of the Wandering? Well, first gives you 2 little mastery. Orchestra of the Wandering only gives you 2 pieces 80, which is infinitely less than 1/3 of the set of Golden Dreams 2, because people believe that with the Orchestra that gives you 35% damage to your loaders. You're going to increase your damage a lot. And let's remember that those 4 Orchestra pieces, they're only adding damage to your loads. That's not only half of your damage, but many times of the 3 charged. Interrupt you one, then it's less than 40 to 35% of all damage to Tighnari's rotation, and it stays. In that most damage to Tighnari is his ulti. The Orchestra set is not giving you additional damage to your ulti, however the Olo set of Golden Dreams with mastery is hurting you in your ulti, and then you're loaded by the talent of Ascension and additionally by the damage multiplier of the elemental reaction of Spirit of War is E. The set of Golden Dreams gives you incredibly damage, far superior to the Aaron's Orchestra set, and the Aaron's Orchestra is a pretty big mistake because it hurts Tighnari enough. You're losing a lot of damage now. The last set, the Memory of the Forest, because in some situation, Tighnari, you can wear this set. Let's say good fill doesn't make much sense. It's true to lower resistance if I don't know what good is my, because I always go with sound inside if I play some team. I go with Emily, and if I play some team with, for example, the team of But of Chlorinde, I go with Baiju and Baiju. It goes with Memories if I play some Bloom team with, or with Nilu, I go with Kaba and Kaba, as you are watching on screen goes. With Memories of the Forest, with which I definitely know that another team that plays a tour is Tighnari. I decided to also put Tighnari this set because I had amazing pieces of this set, and Nahida always goes into my account specific. For the situation Golden Dreams, I always go with Nahida's Golden Dreams, and Tighnari goes with Memories of the Forest, basically Capio. Not until I have the C4, calculating having the C4 in the future, if I will capiate the 1000 masters in my Tighnari. Without carrying Golden Dreams, with which it is easy to reach 1000 mastery with Tighnari, carrying Golden Dreams in summary now, which is what you have to wear, basically always mastery here. I have seen people with attack and others. Things not always mastery here. I have this piece of watch, as you can see here, 50 crit value. Thanks to the Ianjing of the L. Kali artifacts always warm inside, and the helmet would tell you that on most occasions you will carry critical probability because Tighnari scale with bonus damage within does not scale with probability or damage, but if your arc gives you probability you can take Tighnari with helmet critical damage, as is the case that you are seeing on screen weapons. This is interesting. We go ass. Always made in the builds to lately separate the free to play weapons that everyone can get from the top weapons of the game. For Tighnari, the free to play are basically the last chord because the mastery rents you for everything, and the passive gives you 48% damage to your ulti, which is your most stable half damage, i.e. for all free-to-play in general. Last chord is best in slot because there is the arc that is the Perforavis that good. This is also very interesting. That gives you mastery of the Cloud Cementer, but there's the Perforavis. This is Perforavis that gives you attack. Attack says that after Volping with a loaded also gives you 80 Master's Degree for 2 times 160 Master's Degree, since well between the PKVs that gives you mastery attack and between this one that gives you mastery damage in your ultimate is better, and the total damage is greater. With the last one number 2 chord between the Perforavis and this other free-to-play weapon that was also grounding vent of clouds that gives you mastery. This in the end also gives you 160 more climbing than I think they are. Another 100 in peak gives you like 300 masters, more or less remains similar, but the 48% inflicted damage that is a multiplier. Superior to the critical damage in your ulti causes the damage of the rotation to increase well above the mastery that until you could get left over with Cloud Cementer or above the attack multiplier of the Perforavis from far away with it, which for free to play in all cases last chord that you will all have because it exists from day one and is not an evento time that maybe you don't have, as a for review the last chord Cloud Cementer will be the best in slot free to play for Tighnari if you have it R5, especially now if you have the battle pass that gives you probability to balance critical proportion. It's not bad if you want to take out a Dark Crag. I wouldn't recommend it so much because the critical value you give yourself quite low, honestly. In fact, I would even recommend first the battle pass in Tighnari that even suits me and has more crit value above of the Dark Crag, and finally already out of the free to play weapons that we are left with the last accord of 5-star weapons. Well, the wings by the critical proportion is not bad. The first great number of magic that I have a quantity of through. Attack quite high is not bad, but does not give you mastery mainly in Tighnari. There are 2 arches that take him to the sky apart of its own arch that as always happens with the characters. Its same arch, the Path of the Emerald Green Hunter, gives you the best in slot. In fact, this is the Arch of the Emerald Green Hunter, and its arch, the Bow of Tighnari, is the Path of the Hunter. Emerald Green is like a wink, and it has to do quite the case is that Tighnari his best in slot out of his weapon are the Winter Star of Tartaglia because it has an insane amount of attack, and Tighnari can activate the 4 buffos giving a normal attack after the elemental, and would be your bronze medal. Your top 3, your top 2 arcs is the Aqua Simulacra by the absurd amount of critical damage and the 20% damage inflicted, and its top one is therefore his weapon, the weapon of Tighnari, because the passive. It's that transforms mastery into damage attack, loaded basically with which is just like his talent, and you'll take a lot of advantage. Plus those 1000 masters you can reach with your own bow, so it's easy who has Aqua Simulacra or Winter Star. Tartaglia put it on because I say Sphil, but here you said the attack, but yet here already because in the last. According to the attack is competing with 50% damage inflicted on his ulti, which is half of his damage, and is stable damage then. There is no competition between the entire attack of the perforation and this, and the damage inflicted on his ulti. However, this 5-star weapon, with the base attack much higher by being base attack, plus the insane multiplier that has percentage if you can give more damage than the last chord, because the other one is competing is probability, and that's gonna make you reach Tighnari. Critical multiplier is much higher. Dinaric and the Winter Star can reach 70, 200 of proportion, and with the last chord can barely reach 70, 120, 130. So you stay a lot further away, so that's the stats weapons well. Little paragraph, and I even changed my shirt and everything. Remember that if any weapon you have, I have not mentioned it in the video, the slingshot, the rampage agitator Yoimiya. Phil, I have this gun, and it's very good, and I get very good damage. There's a tier list of weapons in Tactor's little updated guide. Tighnari's summary guide. If you don't want to watch the video again 85 times, that I know you like long videos and you see many times, but in some case quickly you want to consult the guide outside the house. Any situation where actually watching a 40-minute video is not the best, remember. I have the guide summarized in Tactor. Link below in the description of Tighnari's build for you to see graphically. The first thing is that you have to reach about 120 of recharge, because although it has cost of 40, that is quite little. The lowest of the game equal he generates enough for himself, bad particles of Nahida, but the rotation is so fast that in so little time you don't generate so many particles with a rotation of 20 seconds and sometimes fall short of last, which 120 is the minimum for Tighnari, then the proportion if your bow gives you probability or damage minimally. Draw 70, 200. If the arc does not give you probability or damage, to try to remove 70, 130, 140. If you hurry a lot with perfect items and buy. Last, you have to prioritize above the attack. The mastery more or less Tighnari here you have to see reflected with clock. Mastery between 300 and 400, and then in the field when you activate the consonants within the talent of Tighnari, some additional set that you can carry the Saurian Dream if you take it, and mainly the 250 of Nahida. When you throw the ulti that can give 250 to the character in the field, normally you will put between 800 and 900 of masters in the field, activating as all the talent Tighnari, and if someone by a casual has the C4 that is 120 more, try then that in field without activating the C4 get. Because about 800 and to not exceed 1000 of masters, and the rest to invest it in critical proportion is easy. The teams have commented them at first either full Gravit playing Tighnari, Nahida official cookie, or something like that. That are 2 Electros, 2 Dendros, no plain Emos. Because the green shadow inside does not exist, unlike when to the Electro in the slot is Tighnari, Nahida, Furina, Cookie. That is the best team of Tighnari rooms of a rotation with Tighnari. Shero, with all the Shero, but above all taking advantage of the best constellations of the game, that are the C2 of Nahida, the C2 of Furina, that literally allow you to make Tighnari a nonsense character in these little more compass. This is the deep escape. I hope I have taught you something new, because Tighnari in the end has already been in the game for almost 2 years, and what I don't believe. Okay. That fits a lot, because it seems that NATLAN is made to play with one another, the characters of NATLAN, and little more careful.